maybe I should just begin by welcoming the viewers of the film festival to the Q&A today. And with me is Ivan Ayr, the director of Milestone. He's making his second feature film. He's a director currently based in India. And actually, I know you, Ivan, from a while ago when I saw your first film, Sunny, and it was a very impactful film because you were making a very edgy, gritty, almost non-Bollywood kind of like topical, close range, female, like very alternative kind of the Indian cinema that's not very common in the world of Indian film today. And in your new film, you go into a totally different universe, following I think a bit of like this very same essence of like a close range and very intimate kind of spaces. But I do also sense there's a different kind of approach because there's maybe a bit more subjectivity, a bit more distance, a bit more interpretation from the audience. So I guess for the first question, I wanted to ask you, what about this universe that you have crafted drew your attention, got your attention to make a film about it? And how did this time or this process make you change your approach from your first film to this one?
Sure. So what attracted me was the fact that truck drivers, they're truck drivers and trucks. I mean, they're ubiquitous. They're kind of like the backbone of our, civilization. I mean, they make modern civilization possible, in my opinion. I mean, especially the capitalistic system. They're so essential for the workings of the capitalistic system. Yet I felt we know so little about them. And part of my own extended family were in the trucking business at one point. So I'd heard stories from them that had kind of seemed very interesting to me. I always wanted to learn more about this occupation. And there's something ironic about the occupation because, it's like a truck driver is always on the road, seeing so much, but yet kind of confined in a very tiny space. Not really, always fluid, moving from one place to another. Yet, they're kind of like prisoners of this one tiny space. So they're like trapped in this one box, and they see the world through that kind of enclosure. So, which I thought, in a way, kind of that irony kind of parallels the irony of modern life today. Like we're all kind of going places. We're on our own journey in a way, but we're also kind of trapped in this enclosure. It might be an invisible enclosure, but like everything, our perspective is from, it's like this one box that we're trapped in, and everything we see it from there. So we're also kind of becoming, like the truck driver, we're also kind of becoming a bit detached from the world we live in, although we are contributing in our own way. So the essence was that just traveling physical distances and or seeing so much doesn't necessarily mean that you're getting anywhere in life. So that was kind of like the initial ideas when I started writing the story. And then, of course, who the character is, where does he come from, where the story is based. I mean, I spent part of my childhood in Delhi, so the film is based in the outskirts of Delhi, so was Sony. So it's kind of like Delhi is kind of like a melting pot where, people from all over the country come to earn their livelihood. So it kind of seemed like the right place to start and a right place to set the film, because I'm also interested in exploring the city through different perspectives. And so kind of those were some of the, I would say, initial thoughts and initial motivations for the story. And then, of course, as it happens with, literature, or, if you're writing a book or any story, you have to You focus on the details and character, their life, their fears. So, and India being a very young country, there's this natural progression of the young kind of replacing the older generation. And so how does each generation feel about the other, and whether they can get in each other's way, each other's aspirations. So that's how the film came about. That's how the conflict in the film came about.
Yeah, I think what you said about this generational takeover, I guess, and what the film does quite beautifully is it does show this idea of this growing redundancy, this growing obsoleteness of this main character,
Yeah.
who is also, I guess, trapped in this helpless cycle. Like he and his fellow workers, they are sort of in some form of like brotherhood, but at the same time they are one man for themselves. And do you feel like this is something that's quite specific to the cities like Delhi today? Is it like, or is it generally across India? This is a general movement that's happening. Like there's a shift from the labor and the economics of this labor that's so prevailing now.
Um, I mean, I think it's definitely not specific to Delhi. I think it's just, um, like I said, it's just, I think, a byproduct of the very hardcore capitalistic system that everyone for themselves. And the relationships, the friendships, they're all, they're slowly kind of getting diluted by self-interest. The collective, it's getting diluted by just your own ambitions. And but at the same time, I like to focus on individuals. How individuals might differ in opinions, in just their attitudes, their personalities, even though they're part of the same kind of occupation. Because one thing that also is kind of like is becoming very um, common, I should say, or very prevalent in India, is this need to categorize people, this need to label people based on their occupation, or their background, their gender, their religion, whatever. So, so just focusing on the individual, just like I focus on the individual in Sony, is to give those who have some kind of preconceived or premeditated, just these notions about, you know, that occupation or that gender, they can perhaps rethink those assumptions. So, if how do I make a truck driver relatable to somebody whose occupation is very different? So that's also where I have to expose their humanity, expose their life in a way that becomes relatable to somebody whom I might have nothing to do with that profession. So that that I think is what is common between the previous film Sony and this one, is the focus on just the human being, the individual.
Yeah, and you need to follow up on that. Like, how is it working with Savinda Vicky, your actor who plays the main character, Galib? The script itself is very much layered in a lot of internal kind of conflict, and nothing is. There are some more explicit like external factors of tension, but there's also a lot of internal ones. Personal wise, the ones of his sort of his brother, like his compatriots. How was it like working with him, and also talking about this character building? How did you build this character together?
Right. Well, I had been I had it's a very pleasant time working with him because he's somebody who is you know, very open to new ideas, uh, even though he comes from um, you know, he does mostly mainstream cinema, but having worked with Gurvinder in a film called
Of direction.
Fourth
Yeah.
Direction, so he knew that this experience was also going to be uh, you know, in that zone, if you will. Although we had already talked a lot about Govinder's approach and how it, it's very special and it's very unique, and you might say some overlap, but here it's going to work differently. But one thing that was what we both were on the same page about was that it is definitely going to be very, very different from just the mainstream films that one is, one in one as an actor is, is used to, because of course actors mostly make their in India mostly depend on mainstream cinema for their livelihood. So here, um, the uh, the long scenes with a lot of memorization of dialogue, shifting spaces within a single take. Uh, those were the things that we had to rehearse and um, spend a lot of time on before we started the shoot. So there were workshops, 2 weeks prior to the film, and which he was very happy to participate in, and he actually worked on his aging. I don't want to give his age away, but he's not nearly as old as he might come across in the film. So he actually worked on a lot on his body language and his walk, his and his, of course, his look. Um, you know, committing himself to not touching his beard for a little bit and letting it grow, and uh, not touching his hair, and just being in the that costume for very long periods of time, just to become comfortable in it. And then of course the driving part. I mean, he doesn't have any background in truck driving, but he was very committed when it came to learning truck driving. So, and it's very, very hard. It's a huge machine that it's very hard to maneuver, and he actually has to portray somebody who has been driving it for years. So just to kind of pull that off convincingly required a lot of dedication as well. So he did put that effort.
Yeah, you can tell that he really looks like he belongs to this universe, and he looks very worn down. And also the cinematography captured everything very, very beautifully. And I noticed a lot of like the scenes take place either like in dawn or dusk, or actually a lot of the journeys travel through the night. And so it sort of oscillates between this kind of magic hour moments and this sort of darkness that happens, and all the drama happens, of course, in this kind of odd hours of the night. How do you approach cinematography wise with this kind of setting? And I think also you kept the kind of the focus very intimate and very close range, as as intimate as possible with the characters. How do you work with your DOP to construct, I guess,
This was, I mean, this is the major difference between the last film and this one, was that we had to um, have, I mean, with Sony, because it was the film, we knew that it was, in order to make it gritty, it had to be very low light, and about 80% of the film was shot at night. And also because, just the kind of the subject we were tackling, um, the treatment, it actually, it warranted that kind of treatment, at least for my sensibilities, as far as my sensibilities were concerned. This one, of course, it was more complex, and we knew that, there could be flashes of, things that we did in Sony, but we had to reimagine a lot of photography, and reimagine a lot of scenes and technique for those scenes. So, and this also, because the subject matter was not as straightforward, it was more introspective. I thought it was important to kind of have these close range shots of the character's face, because the face itself, the eyes, and the skin, it's a story in itself. I mean, the years of labor should reflect, and it should kind of evoke those feelings of empathy. So that was important. The early morning, it was just to kind of enhance that cold mise-en-scène that we wanted to capture, just to kind of just to kind of accentuate the winter, just the coldness of the world that Ghalib inhabits. And when we were doing our kind of initial screen tests, and just camera tests, and just kind of taking cameras to the location, we saw how beautiful those that whole gray mise-en-scène looked in the early hours of the day. So the whole idea was that, in the morning, especially in Delhi winters, you have this kind of smoky and hazy kind of, atmosphere, and which kind of accentuates everything. It gives the actors kind of like a mood of, it's just loneliness, nobody around, just the city is kind of sleeping. So it helps. I think it helps the narration, it helps the characters. So all of that, I think, is...
Yeah, I agree. I kind of feel like you have constructed much very powerfully, like the kind of invisible moments of violence throughout a day, a working day, from the atmosphere to like the setting of this industrial, like no man's land, to these very claustrophobic truck interior spaces, and then to, as you said, the dusk and dawn foggy, like some atmosphere that's very dense. And somehow it also sort of inflicts this kind of like it sort of accentuates, as you say, the helplessness of the character, that they're sort of in this cycle of sort of daily repetition that they couldn't seem to escape from. And I think I know what you mean.
It's and just from photography perspective, I think it's if you really had to simplify it, it would be that, because the image looks much more compelling, that and much more convincing when you shoot during those hours, because that whole helplessness is somehow it comes out a little stronger, even though it's industrial, but it's just it's very it's like an abandoned, that whole space is like abandoned and desolate, and almost it feels like God-forsaken, for lack of a better word. So I think that hue kind of matched with what we wanted to convey to the audiences, the feelings that we wanted to convey.
Yeah, I think because we're running out of time, maybe one last question is maybe more about, like, I think part of the film for me watching it, I did feel also the idea of milestones, like the title of the film, and there are many layers to it. I mean, in the opening scene, I believe his colleague tells him that, oh, he has driven so many miles, you know, he has met this kind of milestone. And then throughout the film also he talks about, you know, these pit stops that are sort of the literal milestones, but as well as some kind of like comes full circle at the very end when we hear this man talk to, you know, this stranger's sister, and talking about how this young man's life has changed and how he's sort of becoming the character that he is, and how that is also sort of like a threshold. And how do you feel like, well, I mean, how is this more philosophical idea of milestones, like what were you trying to create with this title, but also with the whole film itself?
Yeah, I mean, it's of course, you know, milestones, you know, you associate them with the road, and this man has spent most of his life on the road, passed many milestones, and like you said in the beginning of the film, is told that he's passed another quite a significant milestone. So, but I mean, that's also kind of like unknowingly, unwittingly. I mean, he didn't really set out to cross that milestone, but what you realize is that in order to like keep passing these milestones, you have to pay a certain price. You know, if you're on the road, the machine pays the price. But in your life, you're crossing these milestones, so you're paying for these milestones with your own life. Certain things that you're losing in your life. So, you know, his milestone, it has come at a price. Come at a price of personal loss, and come as and maybe now the potential price of losing his job because of aging and because of other things that this job has inflicted, or the physical kind of tolls that have been exacted from him. And and in a way, the younger driver is kind of trying to aim for milestones for himself also, and in towards the end, actually gets to his milestone of becoming a driver of the big truck. But almost, it's like it's the irony is that almost always, you know, when you get to a milestone, things begin to go wrong. So it's so it was just this kind of strange irony that, you know, you're getting to milestones, but as soon as you get to one or a significant one, you're you know, you're confronted with problems, and you kind of you hit a peak, and then you hit the bottom somehow in your feelings, in your career. So it's kind of like so in a word play, and kind of like the whole strangeness of it that kind of attracted me to this title.
Oh, God. It's a very poetic but also tragic sentiment that you just expressed, you know. But I think the film is very provocative. It just makes you think about this topic that generally, you know, very often just flies by our head. Because I mean, I think our generation especially, you know, like we are used to this entering the cycle of labor. We don't really think of like expiration dates. We really think about maybe purpose beyond serving a certain kind of economy or certain kind of, shall we say, like, you know, economic or body politics, and that we sort of inflict ourselves through. And I feel your film does. When I saw it last night, I was really I couldn't stop thinking about it for a while. So it was, I think, it gave enough clues, but also very rich in its sort of its message. So thank you so much for making the film and letting us see it in Singapore. And congratulations for Horizonte, of course. And looking forward to your next project. Please, yeah, you're welcome back to the festival. Yeah, anytime.
Thank you. And are you at the venue right now, or
We're at the festival office.
a festival office? Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
I think something's remotely this year, so it's
All right.
okay.
Well, again, thank you for the opportunity, and wish I could be there in person, but I'm glad that we could do this virtually, and thanks to SGIFF for screening the film and screening it physically, especially in these times, in these difficult times. And thank you to all the viewers. If you can extend my message who came to watch the film and supported cinema in these times. I think we need support.
Yes, we will. So thank you so much, and see you at the festival.
Okay. Bye.
Bye bye.